Kim needs teaches in Pennsylvania biology at high school. She won some national award. They apparently don't apply for it; they seek them out. But she got $25,000.
In the state of Pennsylvania, or she got?
It's a national award of some sort. I think they awarded 40 of
Oh,
them.
my goodness.
$25,000.
Good evening. I'd like to go ahead and call the special called school board meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mr. Ritchie,
Present.
Mr. Sturdivant is not here. Mrs. Bailey?
Present.
Mr. Palmer is not here. Mr. Campbell is not here. Mrs. Garner is not here. Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Edwards?
Here.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Present. Can I get a motion that we adopt the agenda for this evening?
Mr. Chairman, this time I'd like to amend the agenda to add an action item to rebid this project with the amended specifications.
So I have an amendment to the motion to rebid the contract with the
Amended specifications.
amended specifications. Can I get a motion? I have a motion. Can I get a, yes, can I get? Second. Have a motion from Mr. Edwards, a second from Mr. Ritchie. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes. Mr.
Yes.
Nichols, I believe you have some information for us.
Yes, tonight, I want to say thank you to all of you for attending this special meeting. As the board is aware, last week at a special meeting, the decision was made to rebid the contract for the new secondary school complex. At that point, we had to go back in and look at the adjustments that may need to be made for the contract to go out appropriately for the rebid, and staff in conjunction with our architects represented tonight by Mr. Eddie Evans, as well as Skanska representatives represented tonight by Paul Paget, I'm sorry, have been working diligently on that. We sent out a copy of the updates that they would like to have changed for the new bid that goes out. That information has been sent to each of you, and we are here tonight for you to review and ask any questions that you have, make amendments to what they have suggested as you see fit, and then vote as Mr. Edwards has just opened the door for us to do as we have a quorum, so that the bid can actually go out this weekend, and we can set a date that would be an appropriate date for the bids to come back before Thanksgiving, and hopefully be able to select the contractor that will be working with us and not get far behind our original contract time period. So I would like to have the opportunity for I don't know, Brian, I guess, to maybe just step us through some of the parts, and any questions that you have along the way, you can ask those questions.
Board members, have you all had a chance to review the information that was sent to you?
I did review what was sent out as the
Okay.
board docs, but we just got an email with those things now that have kind of been cleaned up, so that's what he's going to show us. So
Okay.
I'm still reading through those
Okay.
things.
I just
So
didn't know
I'll
if you all
ask
had any
questions as
preliminary,
I
okay.
go.
All right, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Dalton.
We didn't have access to the cleaned up version of the spreadsheet till this evening.
Okay.
So essentially what we had yesterday, and basically it's just got some answers for a lot of those questions that were on it. And Mr. Honeycutt, you were available and actually sit in with us on this as we went through these items right after the meeting last Wednesday?
Yes, sir.
Last Thursday. So if y'all would like to just briefly run through it, I can go through each item, and if there are any questions, we can elaborate on that a little bit.
Mr. Dalton, why don't we do that? Why don't we go through each line item, and just,
Okay.
if any board member has a question at that time, direct those to Mr. Dalton.
All right. First of all, we talked about eliminating the half-inch colored polishing topping slab. And as I explained to Mr. Honeycutt, all that was after the project's complete, they wanted to go in and pour a half-inch, a colored topping slab over the whole building. We felt that for numerous reasons, reason number one, it saves us a lot of money if we don't do this. But we heard back and forth that maybe it wasn't such a great idea. Some of the people that we talked to had found that it collects moisture between the two slabs. It gets brittle. We just felt like it was in our best interest to leave this out and use the initial slab to do whatever we want to do with, whether it was terrazzo, polished concrete, sealed concrete, rubber flooring, whatever. We felt that it would be better to use the initial slab for our flooring. We've gone back and forth as far as item number 2 goes. I mentioned terrazzo. Went back and forth with different floor surfaces and coverings that we could use, but nothing held up like the terrazzo did. I've called numerous school divisions. Newport News School Division is a huge school division. Keith has been there for 30-plus years. He said that whenever they build new buildings, terrazzo is not even a VE item. It made me feel a lot better. The architects have been promoting terrazzo from the start. So we feel like we know there'd be savings there, but we felt like we'd be sacrificing the durability for years to come. So we felt like we should definitely leave this terrazzo now when I say everywhere, it was only designed to be on the main corridors and cafeteria, and it was designed to be on the main corridors upstairs. So we felt like it was some savings there. But the only place it didn't really hold up was in the cafeteria. Polished concrete, sealed concrete, anything you put in the cafeteria is subjected to a lot of acids. And we even got a spreadsheet sent from a guy that we had talked with yesterday, and it shows that nothing concrete-wise is going to hold up to ketchup spills, hot sauce, vinegar. Anything that's very acidic, it's going to leave a white silhouette stain forever, pretty much. So we basically left the terrazzo in the main corridor and the cafe because of the durability of it. And one of the questions was, how flexible is this to actually, because we want to put our mascot in there, our school logo, our name, change color schemes. You know, the options are, well, they aren't unlimited, but we have a long ways we can go with the terrazzo nowadays, as Eddie was mentioning. So we feel like that's the best way to go on that.
So, but you are eliminating it upstairs?
Upstairs,
So
and
there's
it was
some
the only
savings.
place that ever was upstairs was in the main corridor.
Main.
And we've also, you have the email link, and you can look at that at your leisure. It's a quick 1-minute video of a intermediate school that they completed about 2-3 years ago in Asheville, North Carolina. And throughout it, it's just a flyby through the school. The floors are absolutely beautiful, and they are polished concrete, dyed in some specs. They've got a big mural of an airplane in the middle of them. Like I said, it's a 1-minute-long video, so you can look at it whenever you want to.
That's in that.
That's in that email that you got.
Mr. Dalton, I do have a question. I've had a couple of teachers since we, since we met last Thursday. What type of floors in the actual classrooms? Is that going to be polished
That's
concrete?
polished concrete also.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you know, one of their concerns, standing on concrete all day, I mean, I'm not sure, none of they're standing on tile right now, but I just brought it up because I was asked about it.
I would say there's little to none shock resistance is what you're getting at. I would say there's little to none the shock resistance between VCT and polished concrete.
Okay.
It's still a
Okay.
hard floor.
Okay.
So that's basically the floor questions and decisions we made. Really not a lot of changes there. We decided that one of the items that the architect, that the GC had gave us before was eliminating the courtyard planters. We felt like that was something we can go outside the bid and purchase and save a lot of money there. Pick our own stuff, so to speak. MC cable in lieu of rigid conduit, that's a common practice. We ran that by Pace. They had no problems with it. Alternate light fixture package, that's still under evaluation as long as it meets current specifications. We don't want to sacrifice our specs or our quality or anything. So alternate generator package, being as we're right there on 58, and it's a 3-phase line running, feeding us, we don't feel like if we're on a generator for any longer than 12 hours, we got bigger problems than being on a generator, I feel. So I don't feel like it needs to be a high-ticket item. We do need something dysfunctional, but most generators out there nowadays, you test them weekly, you do semi-annual and annual inspections on them, and they're reliable. So we felt like we could drop down to a alternate package on the generator. Let's see. EPIS in lieu of metal wall panels. We didn't really like the EPIS, but Eddie and them are still evaluating this to see if they can find some other material. We may end up going with metal wall panels. If there was a savings there, it's out of sight. This paneling is up on top of the roof, behind the pitched roof. EPIS really doesn't hold up like we feel like it should over the length of time. We know the metal will, but we feel like there's other materials out there we're still researching. That's not a big ticket item at all. The steel flashing in lieu of copper, stainless steel flashing in lieu of copper, that saved us quite a bit, and the only person.
Line 12,
Yes, ma'am.
utility brick in lieu of the specified. Is that what Mr. Upton was alluding to last week?
Yes,
when we
ma'am.
talked?
And Eddie could probably give you more details on this, but what it is just a larger brick. It's still a clay brick. It's just larger in size, therefore it saves you in labor and saves you in mortar. Of a building this magnitude, we said, we build a larger brick would probably be more aesthetically pleasing than your average size 4x8 brick. Because that's going to be a massive building from the front. So we just feel like it would not only save us money, but it gives you a bolder look aesthetically. Let's see.
13 is where you were at, stainless steel
Yes, ma'am,
flash.
that's a no-brainer. The only
Is
person that
that,
really
is that
affected was
what
the
you
person
see
doing
from
it.
the outside?
You don't see it at all.
You don't
It's
see
it's
the
flashing that goes in, where your roof meets and your soffit meet.
Okay.
They eliminate the curb at the parking lots. You probably won't even see it. You've also got a PDF on your email that shows where Sam Carroll from B&B recommended we do this. Because it eliminates a lot of problem areas. We also eliminate a lot of the islands and trees and plantings that were out there in the parking lots also.
So does that just mean the parking lot is basically flush with everything?
It would actually meet, I'm assuming it would meet grade, Eddie, is that correct? In the back parts. But not where it meets the building.
Above the grass and grade, but you just wouldn't have a curb and gutter there. Some areas you have to have a curb and gutter because they help divert the water to the appropriate areas where it's collected. But some areas it doesn't make a lot of difference. But if we eliminate it, Sam will have to do a little bit of regrading around the parking lot areas where we remove it.
In your attachment, you'll see the pink, that's where the curb's being removed.
How much savings was that?
I can't recall what Cleveland had associated with us, but
I mean, yeah, well, we know, but there's a real per lineal foot cost somewhere,
somewhere there is.
Yeah,
I don't have it with me.
yeah, I could have gotten it from Sammy Walker or somebody that does it every day. And I don't know what it is either right now.
That's about 8,000,
But
12,000.
8,200 linear
Yeah,
feet. I
8,200
think the
linear.
original VE number was $50,000, but, if the numbers are true to form, from just 2 or 3 of them we checked, it's probably 2 or 3 times that amount.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And Sam, he made comment, he couldn't see why we ever needed it to start with. It was just drawn in there, He kind of felt like it may have been a little bit overkill from the get-go, so I don't think it's anything we'll ever miss, and it will save us a substantial amount of money in the long run. And eliminate curb, that's what I was talking about, at the parking lot islands. We don't feel like we need any islands. That's where we're at, right? Removing the islands altogether, because there were plantings in there. And as we've been told by our landscaper, trees create a lot of problems within parking lots.
So we just pave right on through those, right?
And keep our security
Yeah,
lights.
it makes sense.
Keep your security lights intact.
Yep.
Probably create a few more parking places.
This was, yeah, it very well may.
Yeah,
And
Well, that
save
would-
some rims.
thank you.
And it eliminates the issue later on of the roots causing the
Oh, yeah.
pavement to buckle.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
right.
can buckle the parking
That's
lot.
another maintenance item if you
Yeah.
have it.
Oh,
Getting
exactly
rid of
right.
it's something you don't have to cut.
Trees look so good when they're small, but 5 years down the road, or 50, as at Clarksville Elementary's case, we've seen what happened there.
Right,
Yeah.
it can happen, yeah.
Number 18 was
Can we
always
go
in
to
the specs
17?
this way.
Can we
Yes,
look
I'm
at
sorry,
17?
Mr. Dalton, 17, you missed that one. And I'd like for you to explain to the board members because because that was one of my concerns, and it was, you explained it, you and Eddie explained it greatly about the hardwire versus whatever.
Wi-Fi for
Wi-Fi.
classroom doors.
You got it up there as 18.
Oh, I'm sorry, 17 on our book.
Oh, I'm on 18 in mine.
I know why it was, because we deleted a line out of this that shouldn't have been in there in the first place.
I'm looking at what you just sent me.
Yeah, this is the updated version that we have, and it's 17, it's eliminate hardwire.
It is 17.
Yes,
We
sir.
had, you're right.
Okay.
That was in the specs from the start.
Hardware.
No matter, Wi-Fi.
Uh-huh.
And all that's saying is that the front end sends a signal. Everything's contained within that latch. Your card swipe, all that. If I gave Mr. Honeycutt a badge this morning, his badge is not going to work on that lock till probably 10 o'clock that morning, because it just touches base. They're lithium battery powered. It touches base and communicates back with the head end for any updates as many times a day as you want it to. The less it communicates back and forth, the longer your lithium batteries last. You have, all this is in your front end. It shows you battery life, what you got going on. But all that does is update the brain, so to speak, of that door controller. Once they're updated, you're in there forever. Once it sees his card once, it's going to allow him to get in that door lock. It's going to allow it to unlock for him until we take him out of the system. And we wanted it because, number one, the hardwire added about $1,000 per opening. But number two, it was moving parts. That hardwire still has to come out of your door frame and into your door. And over time, that little wire wears and wears and wears. So in reality, with us talking to our security consultants, we feel like the Wi-Fi locks are safer because you take that moving part out of the scenario. And we just had that in there as a placeholder because I believe it was addressed in the agenda. And we just want to make sure when we rebid it, that it was actually wrote into the specs as such,
Clearly.
clearly in the specs as such.
So my question is, with Wi-Fi in the building, are there dead spots? Will there be dead spots? Are we making sure there are no dead spots?
No, we had Brooke and Ron, our whole tech team, went over this with, who did the,
It was
Technology.
Technology, Brian Whitlock.
Ryan Whitlock. And we actually added probably 20 to 30 routers. So it should be well covered.
Okay.
Everything in yellow is pretty much mechanical as relates to the HVAC system. Where a lot of these came from is, I talked with the train guy, the engineer for train, that designed the bid of the HVAC package. And he told me, he said, there's some savings there. Not really fluff. He said, there's just some things we can do different. It's not going to affect your efficiency of your building. It's not going to affect your overall system. You'll never notice it. So what I had him do was communicate with Pace, and we took a lot of his suggestions back to Pace. And working as a team, just collaborating with each other, we figured out what we could take out. Not really take out, but what we could change within the specs that would save us as far as cost, and what we probably ought to leave alone. And if it affected efficiency or comfort at all, we left it alone. And you'll see there are several things that we have yeses by, and the no's we're good with. I think they add a lot to the project, they add a lot to your efficiency, and add a lot to your overall quality of your HVAC package. And if you don't have any questions on the HVAC stuff, we'll go right to 40, and that's planning and irrigation. Mr. Honeycutt actually brought this up, and we thought it was a great idea. And we talked with a local landscaper, and he said that we would save a great deal of money by not having this within the bid package, but still have an allowance for it within the project. So we can go outside on our own, figure out what we want to plant, where we want to plant it. The plans already have it in there, but there's a lot of plantings that will come out because they were in the parking lot. And we also wanted to add irrigation just in front of the school, because as Mr. Honeycutt brought up, drought seasons like this, last thing you want to do is pull up in front of the school. Beautiful building and it's brown carpet out front. So we feel like $150,000 will more than cover the irrigation piece and the plantings.
The good thing is you're going to have your warranty with a local contractor,
Yes.
rather than having to go through a general. It may be from Cincinnati or
You're exactly
Cleveland.
right.
Yeah, at
Who's to
least
say
you
this
go through your
landscaper
local.
wouldn't come up 5 hours away to do the job, and he's out of town? You'll never
Right,
get it.
that's right.
And again, Mr. Dalton, you brought up a good point, and I tried to call you back Thursday, but you had left. We have right at almost, between the care building and the hospital itself, was about a $165 million new building in town. Green Acres did a wonderful job
Right.
landscaping there, but they're toting in trucks of water there because they did no irrigation. All the
That was a
grass
great
is
point.
dead, all the trees are dying, and it's just, I mean, you've got this beautiful building and drive up over there, and it's just, it looks awful. So, I mean, again, I think that would save us in the long run, too, having to replace a lot of
Plus, you get
plants.
some ownership there, because more than likely, the guys that's gonna be doing it are in your community. So if you got a dead tree, he's probably gonna come back and plant you a new one for free, because he don't want that to look bad on him. Polished concrete versus LVT, Mr. Edwards will concur with this. We don't want LVT or carpet. I don't feel anywhere within this building.
Nope.
You'll see in the video, there's a lot of stuff we can do. We feel like natural polished concrete in the admin office. It gives it a very modern look, and it's very maintenance-free. Not maintenance-free, but a whole lot less maintenance than any other product you would have.
Are you gonna, I know we had a conversation this summer about rugs. Will there be rugs allowed in some of these areas?
You're talking about entry rugs?
No.
Rugs like in elementary school
Li-
that they're using.
Like in the media center or in an admin area, might there be a floor?
Something
I
that,
would hope, they do, if you're talking about as far as something to absorb your shock, or chair
Absorb
rolls
noise,
over,
sound.
It's a-
anything that's non-porous, because what we're fighting now, especially in our admin offices, is allergies. And anything in there gonna suck up dust, mold. If you got a cold, it holds germs.
I
It's
think,
just,
I think the area that I'm,
well, you
concerned-
mentioned it yourself, the new
Well,
hospital.
Yeah, I get that. Like, for example, in our guidance areas,
Right.
where there might be counseling going on or one-on-ones with children and adults, and they, I don't know what it's going, how they're going to be set up, but I'm just thinking about from a privacy standpoint. If you're in a room and you're talking to somebody that's got a concrete floor, sometimes it can, I mean, in the next room, you can hear what they're saying. And you deal with that in the hospital setting too. So I guess, if there's, I don't know how we're gonna deal with just keeping those types of areas, conversations be private
Confidential.
conversations.
Confidential, and that's a good point. And I think we can put that on our list, because that's gonna be more of what you insulate the wall with. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, we don't really have any walls that we put insulation in. They're all concrete block walls, so they're very dense. And, I mean, not that you couldn't hear somebody, but they'd have to be screaming to the top of their lungs to hear it on the other side. And all walls go up from the floor to the underside of the floor or deck above them. So
That's
it's
good.
gonna be real hard.
So that's a little different design than a medical building
Right, if it
or a
was drywall
hospital
partitions,
setting
that
where
would be a
you can
different
hear
story.
through the wall.
Well, and what you're hearing, if you notice the South Hill a lot, you have that open ceiling. You can almost hear what's going on in the next class in the ceiling. That's where a lot of, as Eddie brought to light, your walls are from floor to decking. So you don't have this drop ceiling
Okay.
with a gap over each wall.
So how thick, Brian, is all the blocks in between?
8-inch
Well,
concrete,
they're
8-inch
either
block.
8 or 6, depending on, a lot of the smaller spaces, they can be 6 inches thick.
Right. And the reason why I say that is, I was just visiting some friends at the new elementary school, well, the old elementary school in South Hill that they just renovated for apartments. And the guy, Mr. Hayes, who did it, said there was 8-inch block in between. And as we were sitting there having dinner, and I mean, I could hear everything they were saying in the next room. I mean, everything.
They don't go to the ceiling, no, they just go up ceiling height and then
Oh,
the
okay.
ceiling's dropped, so all the sound's traveling over it.
Okay.
Clarksville Elementary School, all the new additions, we just put on the elementary schools so that
Okay.
way. That's the reason they were so noisy when the kids moved in them. The teachers went, man, it's too noisy in the new wings. Well,
Yep.
We cut costs so much trying to get the wings put on the buildings that's what happened.
And you got sheetrock walls in
Yep.
between each class, no
Yep.
insulation.
So the block doesn't go up all the way up?
Yeah, that's
Not
what-
at all.
Okay,
Not
okay.
in none of it.
You
Okay.
will remember in Old South Elementary, those were tall ceilings.
Yes, they were.
And what they did
And
was
they dropped, they
they
put a drop in
put a
it.
drop ceiling in there, so you're hearing over the top.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mechanical trap primers in lieu of electronic, that's a mechanical thing. Actually, the mechanical is probably a little bit better. You don't have the electronics to worry about giving you any trouble. The last item, may or may not,
But there's one on what you just sent me before you get to the last item, because there's gonna be a lot of discussion about that.
right,
There's-
which one was
There's
that?
one, it says cast iron downspout
We
nozzles
couldn't-
in lieu of aluminum.
That's already like that in the specs. That was an item that Cleveland sent us, and we couldn't figure out even what they were referring to. Only thing we could think of is where your gutter downspouts come down, where it ties into your pipe that carries your gutter drainage around. They had, that should be cast iron anyway. South Hill's a perfect example, where your aluminum gutter comes down and goes into a cast iron pipe.
Okay.
That keeps the weed eaters and lawnmowers and people from kicking it. That's the only thing we could actually figure out. We never could really figure out what they were talking about.
And that's already in the spec.
And it's already in the specs as such, so we pulled it off that list right before we sent it. So that's why it's on yours, not ours, because we forwarded you the email that I had forwarded it.
Thank you.
Maybe they'll put that in their next building.
Huh?
Maybe they'll put that in their next building they build.
Yeah, maybe so. The last item, we felt, and I know that, like you said, there may be a lot of discussion about this. Looking at how the specs are drawn for our barn and for our greenhouses, the greenhouses are actually glass greenhouses, and the barn seems to resemble more, now not knocking the architects, but the barn seems to resemble more of a shop than what an agriculture barn would represent. So we felt like it's a definite cost savings if we pull it out of the construction bid, but keep it in the project itself at a price of $400,000. I talked with Greg Gordon at Aaron's Creek Farms. He said, don't throw rocks at me, Eddie. He said if he had all the money in the world, he wouldn't build a glass greenhouse. For the simple fact is, he said your kids need to be working in the learning environment with what they're going to be experiencing outside the learning environment. So he felt like we could have almost a Cadillac of 2 greenhouses, $400,000. But with all that being said, we felt like that we need to see, we've got some cattle, we've got a small cattle program going at Bluestone Middle School now. We've got some other exciting things going on, especially at Parkview High School. I know Ms. Udine is very into greenhouses. So we felt like by making the allowance, it also buys us some time, as well as saves us some money, to let our teachers develop what will work best for them moving forward, rather than, as we've done so many times in the past, here it is, like it or not, this is what you got to work with. So we felt like it would give us time to grow our own, so to speak, and design our barns and greenhouses to meet the needs of our ag department, not just backwards.
But keeping in the components that were necessary for the safety issues.
The infrastructure
The
will still be there.
infrastructure will still be there.
The electrical, plumbing, gas, sewer and water,
All
that
the rough
belongs.
ends would be run in the base bid,
That's right.
so that they would be there for whatever you decide to put in.
So are you suggesting that when when the school is done, that the barn will be done as well?
Absolutely,
Okay.
Yeah.
yes.
A local
Sir?
builder will build it for about a third of what this guy's gonna build it for,
Well,
you know?
I mean, we call it a barn, and it's gonna function as a barn, but it is also instructional space.
It very much is. It's
So-
500 square foot conditioned instructional space.
So it's a, I understand that it's a barn and all that, but it's a classroom barn.
Yeah.
And so I expect that it might, from a square footage standpoint of cost, it would be a little more expensive to build it rather than just a regular barn that someone would use on a farm because of what the DOE requirements are for instructional space.
Right.
So I think we need to go in that with eyes wide open, that
Right.
we're not going to build a barn like Paula might build on her horse farm. It's going to be, it has to be a little nicer than that. I'm sure you
Right.
have really nice barns, Paula, but what I'm saying is, I just think, I see where additional costs would be. I get that. So if, and your recommendation is 400, set aside 400 grand.
Set aside 400,000
To
for the
take care of-
barn and the 2 greenhouses.
Okay.
Because now, I feel like, you know, within our own department, there's a lot that we can do on the barn.
As long, when this school opens, I want there to be
And that's one
agricultural
thing
learning
we were very
space.
adamant about and wanted everybody to understand, and especially Mr. Honeycutt, when we talked the other day, it's not going away. We're not taking it out of the project at all. It stays right there. This is our project budget. We're not saying that this is going to be put off. This is something we're going to do later. We're simply saying this is something we want to have hands-on experience, hands-on with developing for our new complex.
Any board members have any other questions?
What are the ones that are spec, man? I don't think-
60 by 80, which is as large as a football field.
No, that's the barn.
That's
The
what I-
greenhouses.
Oh, the
no,
greenhouses,
not
yeah.
that big.
I think they were 30 by
40?
or something, I can't remember.
Yeah. Greg Gordon should know. I mean, he's got 26 acres of them in Clarksville.
Well, and like he said, you want something that's expandable.
Right.
Well, the other thing that I think about with a glass greenhouse is somebody that comes throwing rocks at it.
Our kids wouldn't do that.
I'm glad to know that, Mr. Edwards.
We can get that bulletproof stuff put on there.
Well, my
Yeah,
big,
yeah, another 400,000.
Might want to put a 1 in front of that 4.
Mr. Dalton, a couple of things, I'm on board with 99.9%. And aesthetically, this is the way I'm looking at it. I just want to make sure the barn, per se, is, whatever type foundation and so forth that we use for the school. I mean, if we have to have a foundation with it, will it mirror what brick and all we're using for the school? I mean, will it coincide and look? I'm asking because
What's actually designed now is still just a metal building.
so it's just a pure metal building?
Colored metal.
Yeah.
Like-
It's roof,
Okay.
but that's what's, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Currently, what's in design is a metal frame building now.
it's a metal building, but it's aesthetically pleasing. I mean, it's a barn-type shape, and it has a little pop-up in the middle of it that lets natural light in, and it's got vents up there to allow the heat to get out, because we're not heating or cooling the barn itself, just the accessory spaces that are going to be utilized for classroom areas. So
And, in the greenhouses, again, I had a chance to ride through the country Sunday, and, look at so many of these greenhouses that are no longer being used for whatever reason, and I know ours are going to be being used, but, my fear is when they're cutting the grass or lawnmowers, I mean, it starts to tear up and the stuff starts to flap in every which way. I mean, I'm just about appearance. I mean, my God, this is going to be a mega complex on the hill. I just want to make sure that, it's going to be nice when everybody pulls up to see it.
I think we feel the same way.
Okay.
I'm guessing that plastic on those greenhouses has to be replaced from time
It
to
sure does.
time.
It does.
And what is, I think I asked that, what is the life of that?
I don't know
I
on
guess it
what
depends on the mill.
What Greg and them are using is not just your run-of-the-mill, like we talked
Well,
about.
yeah, right, yeah, but I
We got
just,
greenhouses at the schools now. We got the cheapest thing that
Right.
we could afford.
okay,
It jumped.
okay.
And you get what you pay for, so to speak. So I don't think it's a fair comparison if you compare what you're looking at now in our schools to what we would want to put at our new facility.
Okay. And like Ms. Bailey said, we'll align this, even though we're keeping the money there and taking the specs out, we'll align it where it will be ready at the same time.
And we're not taking the specs out. We
Well,
still have our specs.
right, but
They're
we're
not
gonna
going
bid-
anywhere.
right, but we're bidding it-
Just asking the GC not to bid
Yes, sir,
this-
okay.
Not to bid this into their budget.
Okay, but you can assure us that, hopefully we'll finish it all about the same time. So when we open up the school, the ag department will be up and ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, it
Okay.
stays within the project.
Okay, all right. I'm good.
In our plans for the program, We're in touch with Virginia Tech and Virginia State to come and help us know exactly what needs to be done. They had mentioned that before. So they're going to have an impact on what we would look to put in as well, and know that we're getting the right information in, but getting it done locally as opposed to having someone else come in and work with us. And even the Farm Bureau has been extremely generous. We're going to want their input on it as well.
I mean, just another question real quick. I mean, do you foresee working with somebody like, like these sheds and all you see coming up everywhere, like cars, I mean, something like that?
No.
They're not structurally sound enough. You can put a metal
That's
building.
like that extra cafeteria we built at behind Parkview High School.
Okay, and I guess what I'm asking is, if you got somebody in mind that you're thinking about, locally that we could use to erect this building?
We've talked about bidding out like through companies like Cambridge.
Oh, okay,
Constructions,
okay.
And places like that.
But one of your major steel manufacturers, the building's in South Hill, so, it's possible those people could bid the building and, a general contractor will erect it. So, save money that way.
But as Mr. Nichols was referring to, we constantly had local support for our agriculture programs. So if you budget $400,000 within the project, that's not including what you may get as far as donations.
Well, we've had some significant donations
And we've already had some,
And they're not looking to supplant what we have here, but to supplement what we have here.
Exactly.
And I think that I've always thought we would be better off to set it up this way, to have those committees work with us on that. One of the things that we put into the work already, the state has asked us about addresses. We have a separate address for the middle school than we have for the high school, even though they're in the same building. They need the information to come in separately. And those two addresses are on the Highway 58 corridor. But I went ahead and actually have a separate address for the agriculture program on the side corridor so that we can set that up for special opportunities.
Cool.
Board members, any other questions? Mr. Johnson, do you have any other questions?
Do you want to go over this?
This is our project budget breakout. This just basically shows you where we filled in the blanks. Right now, we've got, what is the 129?
What the last bid was?
Well,
129.
yes, that's the last bid minus the allowances that
Yep.
we put down in the,
Yeah,
Other
Yes.
costs?
these amounts.
these allowances. Landscaping and plantings, that's what we've gone over here, $150,000.
Gotcha.
Barn and 2 greenhouses, $400,000.
Okay.
And this just encompasses everything that's not, just within the project, which project budget grows a whole lot when you start land easements and permit fees
Right.
and $1 million worth of wetlands permits that we had to buy.
Right.
So this represents the project as a whole, where the construction budget is the largest piece of it, but there's a whole lot of other pieces to the puzzle that go into the project.
You notice that 4.45, that drops right back in the top, and the other cost is where that goes in there.
Right.
So that's, we were just updating this one just before. But when the Board of Supervisors says, how much is this gonna cost? And which is what we're ultimately wanting to know. Somebody's gonna come in with a bid for the construction, there's gonna be a number here.
Right.
And all these other numbers are fixed, and that, including the barn and the greenhouses, that is all part of the project. So when we say, how much do we need, it's the building plus all the other thing costs associated, which you see on
Right.
the sheet.
Okay.
That's what we're working towards.
Gotcha.
And I think by advertising that we found 20 million in savings and put that out to the newspaper, it'll give the new contractors that's bidding something to shoot for.
Mr. Dalton, the project budget, if I remember correctly, the last sheet that we had, it was, wasn't it 34, 36 million over budget?
It was because we had the allowances still within the GC.
Okay, all right, I
But
understand,
if
yes,
you
sir.
add that back up there, it's
Yeah,
36.
yes, I see it. I'm sorry.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
was Mr. Edwards joking when he said $20 million?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
But it sounded good. If you were bidding, if you were bidding, you'd be trying to get to that number.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah, no,
look through the weeds there, to
No,
find out what's
I
really going
wasn't
on.
in
Okay, so I have another question.
ma'am.
You also sent us a document on floors.
I did. That was through, we spent a lot of time.
I get it.
Going over
I get it.
floors, so
So.
we
there-
felt like that we needed to pay a little bit more attention to our flooring surfaces. So this is a spreadsheet we basically created, just, to, go through and figure out what was going where,
Okay.
so to
So
speak.
there's still question marks in the band area.
We talked with Eddie about that. That's because of the acoustics. We're
Well-
not sure if just a concrete floor is in there.
Well, the
Feel like it
floors
may
that
be-
they're using now are LVT floors, I believe.
Mhm.
And in my experience, the acoustics in a band area, it's more important to have things on the walls and the ceiling that helps with that more than what's on the floor.
Well, we have a sound consultant.
Yes.
That we utilize, and they look at everything. They look at the shape of the room, the materials, and they also have a program they use to analyze if they use certain types of panels on the walls that absorb or reflect sound, and we do a little bit of that in the ceiling as well. So once we've made a decision, what we think we want to stick with on the floor, they'll rerun their analysis, and that'll tell us what we need to do. And like you said, it could be, we could just add a little bit more around the wall or in the ceiling and be okay.
So then in the specs, I guess there was some type of allowance for this band area for all, for acoustics.
Well, not an allowance, I mean, in the spec.
that part
we
of
just
the-
had the materials called out,
Okay.
in the finish schedule and on the drawings. And it was a part of the base bid anyway.
I just want to go back one more time, I'm sorry, to the, I just had it. The library.
Uh-huh.
I
The media
just-
center.
The Media Center, yes, sir,
Yes, sir.
thank you, yes, Media
Uh-huh.
Center. Again, like I mentioned when we were back there the other day, and I don't want it to look like you're coming into a prison. But I guess, I'm thinking about, sitting in a library, you go and check out a book, or if you're in there working, just something to soften the room, to kill some of the noise in there. Bluestone don't they have some kind of laminate hardwood flooring or something they put in there?
Hard, it's.
Something like that. Again, it gets back.
That's LVT.
LVT,
It's
okay.
LVT. The Parkview has the same.
Again, I just, anybody else's thoughts, again, I'm just, thinking about sound, just to create a quiet space.
LVT is not quiet either. It's click. It's got a click. It depends on what kind of shoes you have on when you walk on it, whether it clicks or it doesn't click,
You might also remember that that was the gym.
Yes, sir, I do remember that, yes,
And then
sir.
they had to cover it.
Yes, sir.
And at Bluestone in particular, they didn't put a sealant in it that would keep the glue from coming through, so we had to go back and cover it again, to pull it up and cover it again. It's all of the issues of why carpet is dirty and stays dirty and does everything else is one of the things we're having to try to work with here.
And we've got Diane Paul, and she's great.
Yes, sir.
The furniture she's looking at, you asked about rugs. They're hypoallergenic
Yes.
and non-porous rugs that you can use in this space, as well as the furniture.
But in all the newer schools that I've been in, there's no carpet, except, the exception would be the auditorium.
Right, now you're exactly right. There is carpet going down the aisles of the auditorium. Then that's basically for safety reasons.
And then under that would be polished concrete under the
Just
seats?
regular concrete.
Yes, sir.
Regular concrete.
Okay, all right.
But there's so much you can do with concrete in the media center. That's why we emphasize that it be colored.
Okay,
You can do anything you want to in there. Design it, different colors.
So the video that you sent us is concrete or?
That's polished, dyed concrete.
It's pretty.
And I talked with the guy today. The school is beautiful. He says he loves it. He says it's 1,000 times cheaper to maintain than any kind of wax floor.
So they pour blocks of it then? That's how you can color it different?
No,
It's,
if you look
Because
this up on
there's-
YouTube,
I'm looking at it now. So
if you
some of
go
the-
to it on YouTube and watch this video, the video that follows it shows you the process they use to do it, and it's
But
probably 2
this
minutes.
looks
Amazing.
like it's blocks.
Yeah, it's all poured concrete.
That's where they
and
section it off and just color different
Then
sections.
they come in and color up sections, and
Oh,
If you
so
notice
those
the
lines
gray
are not
marker
in the
with
concrete. The concrete is smooth. I
Pause
see.
it right there.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
The lines are in the concrete, or between.
But there you're, where you cut
Expansion
lines.
joint.
Expansion joints.
Oh.
There's several ways that they can do the floor slabs, and I don't know all of them, but a lot of times they add divider strips similar to what they would do in terrazzo, and that allows them to put different color in different areas, and when they grind it all, those divider strips get polished just like the slab, so it will look just like a terrazzo floor.
That's right. But this was really one of the prettiest floors I've seen. So this is where I was talking about, they did the airplane. All that's dyed in.
So, I'm noticing their light package there is, did you notice the light there? That's,
That ceiling accent.
That's cool.
So
I don't
I'm
know if
guess-
that's the alternate.
I'm guessing our alternate light package is not gonna look like that.
This is
No, it's gonna be the bulb in the center. It's gonna be the low, the
the
low in the middle.
But you know, talking with the guy, I talked with him this
I
morning.
understand. No,
He
it's
said that the cafeteria, that's what I was referring to earlier, the cafeteria, they still had a lot of trouble with that. As beautiful as it is, and you'll actually see the cafeteria within this video.
Well, I just spent all day at New Kent High School, which is a pretty new high school, and they've still got terrazzo in the cafeteria.
Yeah, Powhatan, I toured that, brand new, what is this, second year?
Yes.
Middle school.
Just went in Powhatan Middle School.
Still.
Yes, sir.
Their polished concrete floor in their cafeteria, white stains all over.
Yeah.
So,
Any other questions for Mr. Dalton? All right, so we will move into, if there are no other discussion or questions, we'll move into our action item, which is to rebid the contract with the amendments.
So moved.
Have a motion from Mr. Edwards,
Second.
second from Mr. Johnson.
Did somebody say something?
That would be Kenny. He
Kenny,
seconded
he
it.
seconded the
Okay,
motion.
all right.
All right, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes. All right. Mr. Nichols, do we have anything else for this evening?
That's all for the evening. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, can get a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Have a good night. Thank you.
thank y'all.
That puts us in a position to be able to put the bid out this weekend.
I got his. Yeah.
Because I relayed that to you. Because our road, we our rate.
I don't know who she is, but I suppose so. If you think so, I'll go for it. Yes.
Yeah, you'll officially vote on it, but at least they can start.
Also, Mr. Dixon's had some positions come up available. Sarah Allen, that gives us a chance to her is going on. She liked her job. We don't realize that this year she had
some family things. She's ready to go back to work. She wants to go. And she's a goals, has a master's degree in middle school. Yeah. She can do that, as a librarian, she doesn't matter what, but there's herself. And she's ready to come to work tomorrow.
Who is that?
Sarah Abernathy, Nancy Drury's daughter, Sarah.
She's from Lawrence.
She lives, well, no, she lives, well, yeah, she is down by that. Yeah.
Yep, no, I'm good, I'll.
But she said she'd be library science, wherever y'all needed her.
Is that,
Yes. I can't call her name. Thank you, Mr. Dawn.
Thank you, Mr. Rich, thank you for coming.
What we just got to.
Jen,